there's such a plethora of honors and accolades and awards that our student athletes and our teams and our overall programs have achieved and have been recognized for this year. Starting even in the fall, you look back at what our girls soccer team did, making it the furthest they've ever made this past season. Obviously our volleyball team, again, some look at as they go through the year and as they start working themselves through the postseason, maybe an undermanned team a little bit across the board. But man, they pulled it together, made a state run, finished up again, in the state championship game, which is phenomenal. We had two all-state participants from that team. We had two females from that team who signed to play collegiate ball next year, one of them at a D1 level. And then you look at even our middle school sports and what they started to accomplish. Middle school girls soccer, the strides that they're taking. During that time, we also had implementation of a couple teams. We had high school cross country. We had high school golf this year, which they actually made postseason play. You look forward into the winter. In the winter sports seasons with the girls basketball team. We also had our first female signee to go, who we going to play collegiate athletics for the sport of basketball, first ever in Concord history. That's huge. Our guys basketball team, wow, just the strides that they've taken over the past few years, making it not only district champs, but also district tournament champs, making a run at the region championship, and then pressed all the way through to the Elite Eight in the state tournament this year. Off that team, we had, we had three basketball signees, going to various schools to play collegiate basketball next year. We had an all-state basketball player as well. So man, they just keep racking up. Our swim team, goodness gracious. First time I've really gone to watch a swim meet, and it was impressive. So, we had freshmen on our swim team who are qualifying for every single event that they tried for at the state level. We had our 4x400 swim team, the guys, finished fourth in the state amongst all levels, sizes of school, both public and private. Huge accolades to them. We started wrestling this year, and let's keep going into the spring as we've just finished that up. Goodness gracious, again, just foundations of programs being laid there. The track team, just kind of a resurgence there and getting that started. We've got a pole vaulter in track who will be competing actually tomorrow at the state level for a state championship, has a very good chance of winning. Our tennis team pressed into the region this year. We also have a freshman tennis player who will be competing at the state championships on Thursday. Our baseball team is rounding the corner, things that they've not done. They had a couple no-hitters, they're hitting home runs, they're just, so, and I know that, within all that, I'm missing somebody. Our guys' soccer team, both high school and middle school, just kind of how they're pressing forward. They're continuing to show improvement. I think some, new coaching, coming in at various, amongst various programs, and all of those has truly shown beneficial. That's always a question, that kind of comes up, especially when we're looking at, when you have to pay per sport. There are fees that are necessary. Heck, if it were up to me, I know if it was up to the rest of the administration, everybody else would just say, hey, just everybody come play, no need. But, there are things that have to be funded, and those athletic fees go directly to that for the broad scope of the athletic department. So kind of all those things go together. They cover everything from athletic department, salaries. It goes down into all of our coaches' stipends, all the way from the high school level and our program directors, all the way down through your JV, your middle school. We even have a few teams that operate at the intermediate level. Oftentimes those are volunteers, but if there's ways to recognize and reward them for the time that they invest, because they a lot of times invest just about as much, both here on campus and off. So we want to try to reward them a little bit as well. It covers those things. It covers our transportation, especially when we have to step outside of what we have here on campus with our vans. Oftentimes you look at the church usage, the school usage, the athletic department usage, everybody's usage of our vans, and so those get spread pretty thin. So there's times where we have to step outside of that and rent transportation. So it covers those. It covers all of our fees, TSSAA. It covers any league fee that we have to pay out for any middle school league that we're a part of. Those athletic fees, along with some of the gate receipts and things of that nature. Also make sure that we cover and have officials and referees at every event. Those are highly important. My goodness, they cover our postseason travel, which again, I think this year we've exceeded the budget in that. But hey, that's a good thing. That means that we're sending teams to the next level. So anytime they go and compete at state, we have to cover their transportation. We cover their lodging. We also cover a per diem for the athletes and coaches while they're there. So that we're making sure that we're taking care of them. When they go, we really don't want families to have to be as concerned about that. We want them to go and be able to concentrate on competing and representing our school and representing who we ultimately represent, Lord Jesus, to the best of their ability. That's what we want to be their concern. And one of the other things that we additionally have to look for places for our teams to practice and sometimes even play. It just depends on the sport. As we're continually trying to dig into our facilities and improving those and adding into those, there are often times that we do have to rent off-site facilities for our teams to practice, to train, and sometimes even play. So, those athletic fees, also go to help cover those costs as well. The next question is, well, okay, there's all these things that they do cover, so what maybe don't they cover? And there are several of those little odds and ends as you kind of work through the season that they don't cover. Oftentimes we're not able to cover our pregame or postgame meals. Those are things sometimes that parents step in, and gratefully so. They do a great job of that, and we're actually trying to offer this coming year. I'm working with Chef Josh. I'm trying to create some easier, some better options so that our parents aren't kind of running all over the place, trying to pull those together last minute or day of. I would say probably the biggest thing that people would probably want to know would be centered around uniforms. There is a small amount within those athletic fees and other revenue streams that go towards our uniform purchases for each one of our teams. But praise God, we got a lot of teams. We got a lot of kids. Even for a high school of last year was 165, 170 kids. A middle school last year was around 170, 175. A lot of those kids want to play athletics. So with that, you got to be able to put uniforms on their back. And so when you're looking at, varsity, JV, freshman, middle school varsity, middle school JV, intermediates, so that dollar gets stretched really thin. And especially with the amount of athletic teams and programs we're able to offer here, which is another huge praise, that we have so many kids, that want to be involved in so many things, especially multi-sport. I'm a big multi-sport guy, so to see these kids want to compete in many things is good for them. It helps their development, but it's also really good for our school and our programs. However, it does make it more difficult for us to stretch that uniform, the revenue that we get from athletic fees to cover all those uniforms. So that's an area right now that we are evaluating, and we're trying to figure out best ways to, come together to cover those costs in other ways. So I guess just the reality is that in an ideal world, again, it has to do, going back to even the athletic fees, wish that everybody could play. We wish everybody, could just come in and have, all new uniforms, every year, or, we're trying to get on that 3-year cycle, which I know has been out there. We're trying to solidify that a little bit. We've got a plan to do that. But as we do so, we're just not at a place yet that we can fully fund those uniforms. So there are some gaps to fill with that. But ideally, as we work through the next couple of years, we will do better and find better ways to close that gap and to release some of that strain and some of that burden off of our families. continue to progress in those, I would say it's just continue to not just bring in phenomenal coaches, which I think this year we have seen a big influx, even over the past couple of years, a big influx, and before I was here, of quality coaches coming in, not just to have knowledge of the game or sport or activity that they're coaching and investing in, but the passion to use that as a platform to share testimony and to speak life and to speak truth into our student athletes. So that's big. I think with that, we've put back in play football this year in middle school, and they're starting to grow that program. Leading the charge in that, the men that are kind of over that and are looking to press forward in that, I think are going to make a massive impact on our campus. So I would say as we continue trying to develop and move forward in bringing coaches, and not just bringing them, but also helping to develop them, giving them tools, that allow them to further expound on their craft, to give them more, material that they can utilize to pour into the spiritual needs of their student athletes. I think that's a big goal of mine. And then I would say for the student athletes, I think that's just kind of a trickle down. I've just seen this past year, and not even having had to have seen previous years, we want them to understand and know their identity. We want them to know where they should be finding their identity in Jesus Christ. From that, we want them to know once they understand that identity, that they need to be making an impact that aligns with that identity. And often impact is that moment where they step in and they do something. They make themselves known, they make their presence known, and in doing so, they make the presence of Jesus known. If they stay there, if they stick with that long enough and they continue to do that, and they do so in various ways, now they're leaving an impression. And if they leave an impression long enough and they continue doing, they spread that impression out over several different areas amongst our school and amongst our community, even outside of our community, now they're increasing the inheritance of this place. And in doing so, they're making this place better for the next generation that kind of comes up behind them. So that's a goal that I want our student athletes to kind of understand and grasp as we go through the next year. My favorite thing about being amongst the Concord community has obviously been just that, has been community. I don't know that I can honestly say that as I've stepped in and become ingrained in a community, in a school, on a campus, that it has been like this. My kids, all four of them, are involved in our school in some capacity. My youngest, Ellis, in the pre-K program. Jeremiah is in third grade, rising fourth, and then my twins, Isaiah and Emery, just completed sixth grade. And when you're able to step back as a dad and kind of as a leader, and know that you've moved your kids and you've displaced them a couple of times, but just to see them welcomed by students, by faculty, by teachers, by administration, by church, just to see them welcome and just absorbed so quickly and immersed in the culture here has been a true blessing for me. And that is without a doubt my favorite thing.